because it's continuing to go on. And he's continuing to arouse things in us that he's placed in us that we've used for evil that he wants to redeem and use for good. And I see it happen in the Ebmeyer family as a whole, as mom and dad are here, and son and little bear and the boy, and it's awesome. It's just cool. Krista, he couldn't speak highly enough of you as in many ways a savior in his life and a rock for him in times where he was adrift. And you guys too, just seeing how God's growing you, and it's just powerful. I'm talking to his mom and dad right now. The rest of you that don't know who I'm talking to, it's not an imaginary person in the second row, but love you guys. Love that you came here. This is just the heart of Jesus. It's easy to miss that in the Gospels if you just sort of chapter and verse it and bounce around with little happy hops to the most popular stories. But Jesus was always after the most unlikely, unruly people. And it's amazing, once they were transformed, they were just, they pushed back the darkness in ways that I don't think sometimes Mr. Nice Guys can do, because they were in the darkness. And they know how it operates, and they know how it functions, and they can smell it, and they can see it. Do you know what I mean? And so it's such a glorious thing to see people redeemed out of darkness, because in a sense they respect the darkness, but they're not scared by it because they know God can overcome it. And Jesus, one of my favorite things about Jesus is one of the primary reasons Jesus came to earth was to seek and to save those who are lost. It was one of his missions. I'm here to seek and to save those who are lost. I don't know why you think I'm here, but my dad, every time I keep talking to my father, keeps telling me my food is to do the will of him who sent me. And he keeps telling me to seek and save those who are lost. Another thing he keeps telling me is you didn't come to be served, but to serve and give your life as a ransom for many. So Jesus had these mission statements that kept him on point. And when I think about him coming to seek and save those who are lost, a lot of times they're like, oh, I'm found, you're lost. And I don't look at it that way, in a condescending way. I think of people here that are lost as missing. There's seats here that people are supposed to be in, and they're missing, and we got to go get them. You know what I'm saying? They're supposed to be here. Or they're aimless right now, and they need to be aimed at something, or they're purposeless. He came to seek and to save those who are aimless, those who are purposeless, those who are missing, and to find them. To search and to rescue, to reach out and to rescue, to search and to salvage lives. Like Jimmy. Right here. Jimmy, stand up. This is the Jimmy he's talking about. And I remember when he first came, when Trav first came in, he saw Jimmy up here, and Jimmy's up raising his hands. He's like, that's a bunch of crap. I know that kid. I know. And we have a story and a reputation these parts. That's not Jimmy. And Jimmy, it's real. And all of a sudden it's real. And I'm not kidding. And I'm not kidding. And you're not kidding. Are you kidding? I'm not kidding. Are you kidding? Oh my gosh, they're not kidding. And you got to imagine in Jesus' day, he's calling all these wild, crazed, uneducated, ordinary, bankrupt spiritual people, and people like, that's not true. And all of a sudden it's like, it's for real. This is what attracts me to Jesus, is his movement toward the world to save them instead of a movement away from the world to save himself. Does that make sense? There's a movement toward the world to save them instead of a moving away from the world to save yourself. And in church, it's really easy to try to quarantine ourselves from the world to save ourselves, protect ourselves, and live in this sort of harbor of safety, which is great. That's what community is. But we're supposed to be moving to the world to save them, not moving away from it to save ourselves. There's this passage that's always been a key scripture in my approach to ministry as a pastor, as well as just a key verse for me in ministry as a human in my interaction with the world around me. I try to spend as little time inside this building as I possibly can throughout the week. I don't know if you know that. I don't have an office. My office is out in the world. McDonald's, the library, the coffee shop, the Showboat, the Tracks. Try to be out there. Sneakers, Larkins. Preparing a sermon in Larkins is fun. There's just so much good material all around you. In fact, I was there last month and I had my Bible open. What are you doing? Preparing for a message this weekend. What kind of message? I'm a pastor. What are you doing in here? It's 2:30 in the afternoon, just the real crazy ones are getting drunk right now. But Matthew 9:9-13. Jesus was a lot like that. He was in sneakers and he was in Larkins. And some of you don't belong in sneakers and Larkins because you can't handle it. You ain't Jesus. And some of you here need to be in sneakers and Larkins because God's redeemed you and he wants you to go back in and to seek and save those who are lost. And you know who you are. And get an accountability partner. They'll let you know real quick. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at a tax collector's booth. Follow me, he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. And while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, that scoundrel, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. This was a publican. This was a sinner. He was a scoundrel. Everybody hated tax collectors because they were sort of in cahoots with Rome and they were in cahoots with the people, and they were sort of on both sides of the scrimmage line, if you know what I mean. You hate those people. They don't know what uniform they're wearing. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" And on hearing this, Jesus said, well, it's the healthy, they don't need a doctor, but the sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. He goes to a triage thing. It's like if I'm coming to a battlefield, I'm going to do triage. And the ones that are healthy, I'm not going to try to make them a little healthier. I'm here to get the sick and the people that are almost dead and dying to live. And I want to say, church is not to make healthy people healthier, fat people fatter. Do you understand? We're not here to be fed so we can get fatter. We're here to get fed so we can go exercise our faith. Some of you are so stinking fat spiritually, you need to go exercise. You don't need to eat more stuff. And I think Jesus is like just saying point blank, I'm not here to call the people that already are righteous. I'm here to call sinners. I'm here to hang with sinners. Why does it surprise you that a person that has a med kit who's coming out to help people who are dead and dying are showing up to people and are trying to bring health to the sick and to the sinners? But this makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know if you know much about my past. If you've been here a while, I tell all kinds of stories. And Tom and Stacy Sutton, you know them? Big old beard, looks like Duck Dynasty, drives their motorbikes. They went out on a 3-week trip and they stopped by to see my parents on the way out. I'm like, oh, they're going to scare my parents to death. Their leather chaps and just looking all gritty. I called them, I said, people are coming from my church. They're friendly people. And they went out there and it was just so cool that people from here I've been praying for you and and they sat down for hours with my parents and then stuck them on their motorcycles and put their chaps on them. My mom and dad got a picture like they were Harley riders. It was awesome. And, but if you know much about my home, it was pretty sanitized. Let's just use that word. We were trying to stay away from the world to save ourselves. And there's some goodness in that and some badness in that. I've always been a Christian insider. I was thinking about this. I was born into a Christian family. We had morning devotions and evening prayers. We had family nights every Thursday night filled with Bible stories and singing around the piano. My mother would tickle the ivories and we'd break into 4-part harmony like little cherubs. And we went to church early for Sunday school and attended junior church and finally were promoted to big church. And we attended Sunday nights, which were generally just a lamer version of Sunday morning, with less preparation and more spontaneity. And then there was Wednesday night prayer meeting, which was about 10% of the congregation, so we'd go there too. I was a Christian insider. At age 5, I packed my bags and headed to the smallest Christian school imaginable, though I didn't know it at the time. I attended there for 13 years and graduated with 2 other guys. One lifer who was there all the way from kindergarten like me, and the other came in midstream and never really got his oars in the water, if you know what I mean. And my other buddy and I, we were lifers. We were insiders, and we knew the ropes. I loved being an insider. I listened primarily to sacred music. Sandy Patty, Steve Green. We couldn't listen to Amy Grant or Michael W. Smith. They had rock beat, you know. I played Christian basketball and Christian soccer and went to a Christian arts competition. And I ran in Christian marathons and sang in Christian cantatas. I graduated from Christian high school and quickly transplanted to a conservative Christian Bible college, Baptist even. And Lord knows that I couldn't handle being out of the bubble too long before encountering shortness of breath and unspeakable temptation. So it was a quick, transition. I attended there 4 years and acquired a degree in youth ministry and went right from there into the youth pastorate and have been doing full-time ministry ever since. Other than working for at a fruit farm during the summers, I've been pretty much quarantined from the contagious virus of secular society for 38 years. And I'm not saying that I didn't go to the mall or hear rock music in the grocery store on occasion, but the bulk of my time was spent in the cocoon of Christianity. And it's protected me from much harm, but it also bred in me a mindset that's very destructive. I tend to be suspicious of outsiders. I was taught to fear them and to flee them. They were guilty until proven innocent. That tends to infect you with a critical eye and a cautious heart in their presence. And I think they can smell it too. And this is what made Jesus radical as a rabbi or a pastor in his day. He wasn't like me or the ministry I grew up in or witnessed. There's a passage of scripture in Luke 15:2 that said, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." This man welcomes sinners and then goes over to their house and eats with them. Don't you want to have a church like that? I mean, some of you are like, I don't know. I mean, what would that be on our marquee? We welcome sinners and eat with them. Really? In Jesus' day, eating with someone in Hebrew culture was a way to acknowledge that person as an equal. Religious leaders considered it unthinkable for a Jewish teacher to eat with people who are common and unclean. And then comes Jesus. He says, I consider you an equal. And Jesus cared more about saving souls than saving face. That's what I love about him. It's important to note that if Jesus couldn't be a friend of sinners, that he really couldn't be a friend of anyone, because we're all sinners, all of us in this place today. And in my mind, this is the sign that should be on every church right here, right here. Come on in. Inquire within. We want you here. Sinners are welcome. We love having dinners with sinners. We're just taken after Jesus. And boy, do we have a lot of them in this place. It's awesome. There's. I don't know if you know this because you're not maybe as good at greeting people as you need to be, but we need to be more hospitable. I'm going to beat you up about that in the months to come. But our church by September should look like a completely different church than it currently is, where we all just sort of come in, find our seat, face the same direction, and a talking head yells at us and we go home. We got to just mingle with each other and be uncomfortable and get to know each other. But I love in this place, this guy came up to me, it was probably 2 months ago, and he said, I don't go to church much, But man, that message today, that was some pretty good. Boop, 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 boop. And he just swore. And I was like, thank you. Thank you. It was so refreshing. I'm serious. Like, I teared up. Like, I was used to, like, good message, pastor, good message, clergyman, man of the cloth, anointed one. No, none of that. That was some good beep. That's who Jesus was around. They weren't cleaned up yet. They were still sinners. That's why he was a friend of sinners present, not a friend of used to be sinners. And when they said, oh, he's a friend of sinners, or he's a glutton, or he's a drunkard, he never said, no, I'm not. He's guilty by association, and he took on those nicknames and just owned them and embraced them. And said, if I'm going to be associated with anybody, and if you're going to make up names about me, even if they're not true, that's who I am currently. There should be people coming to our church that do not believe in God. And somebody emailed me last week. It's hard for me to say, because I know you're a pastor, but I don't believe in God. ... Yet. Whew. You know how I started my email back to him? Welcome, fellow pilgrim. Welcome, you're among friends. There's a whole heck of a lot of things I'm not yet. There should be people coming to our church with the smell of alcohol all over them. There should be people coming to our church with the smell of cigarettes. And I'm out there all the time. I'm cleaning up cigarette butts all over our property. The church I grew up in, you couldn't smoke on the property. And I don't know what I feel about that, but I'm kind of okay with it. I just am. And because I just feel like I want them to come here, and I don't want them to change and then come here. That's like cleaning up and then taking a shower. You know what I'm saying? You don't get yourself cleaned up with a sponge bath and then go step in the shower. You step in the shower. And I don't know how long it's going to take you to free yourselves from all of those things that sort of are attached to you like little, leeches, but we'll stick with you as long as it takes, right? Because we're friends of sinners, not just of saints. There should be people here who come to church that have a reputation in town, like Jimmy and Travis. And all of your birds of a feather that flock together that I'm not like, because I don't have muscles and stuff. I was looking at the video, I'm like, his arms. He's got large pig veins coming out the front of his arms. What the heck? There should be people with every hurt and hang up and every habit, as Celebrate Recovery calls it, come into this place as hearts in transition. I have a hit list in my mind of people that I just am after. It's my hearts in transition list. It's probably, I don't tell the world that. You're on my hit list. But it's hearts in transition. You're on my list. I don't know if it's going to take 5, 10 years, but you're on my list. I'm praying for you. I'm after you. I got hopes for you. You got anybody on your list? Do you love the world? Do you so love the world? Are you a friend with anybody that's not like you? Or that doesn't like you? Jesus was. Christianity is not a bunch of people that just get around people that like them and are like them. That's not what Christ was or did. And just like the case was with Jesus, our church should be accused of being a friend of sinners in this community. A church that has dinners with sinners because we truly love the world. And this reputation will iconoclastically break many unspoken, unwritten social codes of conduct within Christianity, just as Jesus' lifestyle broke all kinds of long-held belief systems that protected them from the world, all the while preventing them from impacting the world with a refreshing, life-giving message of the gospel of God's grace and the hope of life, both now and forevermore. I think it's important to know that Jesus broke a lot of social customs and traditions in his day in this passage in order to fulfill his ultimate purpose and accomplish his plan of seeking and saving those who are missing and aimless and purposeless and lost. Even in the passage we're looking at this morning, the calling of Matthew, the publican or tax collector, is one of these rule-breaking moments. It was crazy in his day, but Jesus called Matthew, a tax collector, to be a disciple. He didn't even put him through like a discipleship training course. He just said, come follow me, and he followed him. That was the 5-second discipleship training transition course. It wasn't in accordance with the Jewish culture and custom. Tax collectors were hated and reviled, not exactly respected members of the Jewish society who'd be voted as the most likely to become a rabbi. Jesus, another thing he did is he ate meals with people whom respectable Jewish rabbis wouldn't eat with: tax collectors, sinners, those who didn't follow Pharisaical interpretation of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Another rule he broke is Jesus allowed the unclean woman who'd been bleeding for years to touch his garment, and he healed her. This is a huge break in the custom of their day on about 1,000 levels. Jesus touched dead people, a no-no in Jewish culture. You just do not do that. And it's crazy. Everybody who touched that was unclean, he spoke to a few of them, but most of them, he had to touch them. He wanted to touch them to tick off the customs of the day, that like, I'll love you from a distance religious gospel. No, I'm getting up close. And he'd touch them in weird ways, not inappropriate ways, but just weird ways. I mean, remember the one where he'd like spit in the mud and with his spittle like made mud pie and then like put it in the guy's eyes? Like, can you just heal me normally? No. I just want to mess up the Pharisees over there. And then there's another guy, a guy couldn't hear. He gave him a wet willy. He literally put his spittle in the guy's ears. Like, imagine if Jesus, like, you cannot be Jesus. What are you doing? I think he did it just to screw up who a leader is, and who a rabbi is, who a spiritual leader is. I touch people. I get close to people. I talk to people. I eat dinners with sinners. I'm a friend to them. Jesus broke custom and tradition by teaching monogamy and against divorce, except in the case of marital unfaithfulness, adultery. At that time in that culture, and we know this by reading the Old Testament, Jewish men could marry more than one woman and could easily divorce their wives for flimsy reasons. And Jesus went against that custom and taught against divorce except for adultery. He was trying to resurrect the sanctity of marriage again. He allowed a prostitute to touch, anoint, and kiss his feet. None of this was culturally acceptable for a Jewish rabbi. Jesus also traveled through Samaria. No Jews traveled through Samaria. They went the long way around Samaria. It's like if you come to Ionia, you would go around Ionia, on the highway and come around. I'm not nothing against Ionia, but I'm just giving you an example. Right? It's like we just don't go to Ionia. No. And everybody, all the Jews that go around Ionia, not Jesus. He goes right down 21, right into the heart of Ionia. What are you doing, Jesus? Screwing up with your belief systems, messing with your categories, showing you what it is to so love the world. This is a big one. He included women among his outer circle of disciples outside the 12 and taught them. He allowed women to travel with him. Think of how cutting edge this was, because after 2,000 years in the Middle Ages, they're still not treating women with dignity and allowing them to have education. He also allowed women to travel with him and financially support him. This was highly unusual within the Jewish culture, since women didn't usually speak to men in public, much less travel the countryside with men. Mary sat at Jesus' feet learning. Traditionally, a place only male disciples sat and learned from their rabbi. It was unusual in this culture for a female to sit at the feet of a rabbi. And when Jesus taught the Samaritan woman at the well, he actually broke more than one custom. And he spoke with and taught with women publicly, and he spoke with and taught a Samaritan publicly. After his resurrection, Jesus appeared to women and instructed them to go and tell. Judaic law didn't allow women to bear legal witness. And still Jesus instructed these women to bear witness of his resurrection. They were the first that he encountered. This was obviously not in alignment with the custom of his day. And I could go on and on. But make no mistake, sinners felt more comfortable in Jesus' presence than religious people in his day. As he engaged the reprobates, he enraged religion. He created an environment that fostered friendship with the world without being worldly himself. He was very truly the epitome of someone who was in the world without being of the world. Even sinners, and I would go so far as to say especially sinners, were drawn to his humble and humane approach to sharing the good news of the gospel. There's a poem that I heard several years back, and I know I've shared it here a couple times, but it really just rings true as the mission of this church. And we can attract all kinds of people from all kinds of social classes here, and we can turn into something other than who we really want to be. And I just want to keep declaring these things because by default, we will move away from really being who Jesus was and what he longed for, and will turn into something that we're more comfortable with. I'm not interested in our comfort. I'm interested in his comfort zones. I'm interested in his cultural norms, not what are ours. And this poem is, so I stay near the door. There's a huge debate. Are we going to be a deep church? Are we going to be a seeker-sensitive church? Are we going to be appealing to people that are searching for the gospel? Or are we going to be deep in theology? I just think it's all of the above. And there's this poem that says, so I stay near the door, and I believe it's the mission of our church, particularly in this community. And listen to this. It says, I stay near the door. I neither go too far in nor stay too far out. The door is the most important door in the world. It's the door through which men walk when they find God. There's no use my going way inside and staying there when so many are still outside, and they, as much as I, crave to know where the door is. And all that so many ever find is only the wall where the door ought to be. And they creep along the wall like blind men with outstretched groping hands, feeling for the door, knowing there must be a door, yet they never find it, so I stay near the door. The most tremendous thing in the world is for men to find that door, the door that is there that leads to God. The most important thing that man can do is to take hold of one of those blind groping hands and put their hand on that latch, the latch that only clicks and opens to the man's own touch. Men die outside that door as starving beggars die. On cold nights in cruel cities in the dead of winter, die for the want of what is within their grasp. They live on the other side of it, live because they have found it. Nothing else matters compared to helping them find it and open it and walk in it and find him. So I stay near the door. Go in, great saints. Go all the way in. Go way down into the cavernous cellars and way up into the spacious attics and into a vast and roomy house, this house where God is. Go into the deepest of hidden casements of silence and sainthood. Some must inhabit those inner rooms and know the depths and heights of God and call outside to the rest of us how wonderful it is, and he is. Sometimes I must take a deeper look within and sometimes venture a little further, but my place seems closer to the opening, so I stay near the door. The people too far in do not see how near these are to leaving, as they themselves are preoccupied with the wonder of it all inside. Somebody must watch for those who have entered the door, but who would like to run away, so for them too I stay near the door. I admire the people who go way in, but I wish they would not forget how it was before they got in. That they would be able to help the people who have not even found the door, or the people who want to run away again from God. You can go in too deeply and stay too long and forget the people outside the door. As for me, I shall take my old accustomed place near enough to God to hear him and know he is there, but not so far from men as to not hear them and remember they're there too. Where are they? Outside the door, thousands of them, millions of them, but more important for me, one of them, two of them, 10 of them, whose hands I am intended to put on the latch. So for those who seek and have yet to find, I shall stay near the door. Our church will always seek to stay near the door. We have to, as Paul stated to the Colossian church, Colossians 4, 3 through 4, he said this, "Be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." A wisdom in how we are with outsiders. Met someone new that's here for the first time tonight. Couple people, and I'm like, welcome. How bold, how courageous. All of us with our Christianese and insider language, and we know it all, and we know everybody in here. We know a lot of people in here. Let us not forget the people that need to be connected to the latch. Are you looking for them tonight? Are you coming here thinking about them and God? We're here to hear from God and to touch him, but we're here to listen to them and touch them too. And so God ate with sinners, dinner with sinners, because he came not for the healthy, but the sick. And we must be here for the people who are sick. We must try to encourage the healthy. But we must, as healthy people, turn our eyes toward the sick. If we're going to be a church that stays near the door, if we're going to really be a church that really believes this sign could only be hung on the door, but lived out in the church, in the inside of the door, but on the outside of the door, we must create environments like Matthew created for his friends to meet Jesus. Matthew moments, I call them, or Matthew parties. I love it that God calls Matthew, and Matthew finds Jesus, but then he has a party at his house, and he invites his friends to come over and meet Jesus. It's what we want this place to be, a very real, raw place where we're all honest to goodness, honest to ourselves, honest to God. So when we invite our friends to the Matthew party, the Jesus party, they can meet him without feeling awkward, and he can meet them without feeling awkward. And we just are people that putting, people's hands on latches. And I know some of you want us to worship longer, and you want us to go deeper, and you want us to be more this or less that, or more this or less that. I want to be this. Whatever this.
This